More moves are incoming for the Toronto Raptors as we just saw this team pull off a major trade, bringing in Brandon Ingram last night, which we'll have a lot of videos on breaking down the deal. And the Raptors were very close to being a part of the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes, according to Shams. He actually revealed that Masai Ujiri was a part of that deal, bringing in some salary structures. But that deal ended up falling apart because, of course, the team went on to acquire Brandon Ingram. But given the logistics, given the specifics of that trade, all signs point to another deal happening by Masai Ujiri based off a couple specific factors, according to recent reports. So we're going to discuss what's going on with the Toronto Raptors, how the roster's looking now after that Brandon Ingram deal, and what we can expect as Toronto Raptors fans heading into this absolutely insane NBA trade deadline. But folks, you guys have been crushing it, hitting that sub button. So if you don't want to miss a single thing that's going on with this team, and you guys are a part of the 67% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, we will be going live this afternoon. We got a lot of stuff incoming for this Raptors team heading into the trade deadline. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing that's going on with this Toronto Raptors team. I mean, if you were subscribed, you joined in the live last night, you would have caught a live reaction. Still up there on YouTube for the Brandon Ingram news. But let's dive into the madness because it has been crazy out here in Raptors land across the NBA. Last night, news came out that the New Orleans Pelicans traded Brandon Ingram to the Toronto Raptors for Bruce Brown Jr., Kelly Olynyk, and 1 first-round pick, 1 second-round pick. Now, the details of those picks are essentially that that 2026 Indiana Pacers first-round pick that we acquired in the Pascal Siakam trade, and then a 2031 second-round pick for the Toronto Raptors. So that's a little context, a little updates in terms of the moves that have already gone down for this Raptors team. And then last night, too, we had just an insane update. We got videos on all of these situations about Kyle Anderson getting sent to the Toronto Raptors and the deal falling apart. It was all fluid, was the terminology used at this point. But what this gave an indication of is Masai Ujiri's plans before he acquired Brandon Ingram. And it was to bring in some guys, bring in some contracts that, you could take on because other teams want to stay under the tax, but you get compensated for taking on these contracts, taking on these deals, because of course other teams don't really want them to be in the repeater tax and things like that. So they're willing to give up assets in order to be in that situation. Well, once the Toronto Raptors talks became serious, they started to escalate to a point where obviously the deal ended up coming true. Of course, this deal is going to fall apart because you don't want to risk anything. Any of your last-minute leverage in terms of, making a deal, having all the assets at your disposal to acquire an all-star caliber player in Brandon Ingram. So that's what was going on there at that point. But once we saw Brandon Ingram deal, because of course he's on an expensive contract, we figured, hey, our cap would go up. And I'm sure Masai Ujiri did the same thing. It's why this deal for Kyle Anderson fell apart. So that ended up not being the case for the Toronto Raptors, as news came out that the trade is reported to be close to salary neutral. So Raptors still have some flexibility to recoup an asset or two by eating a contract. It feels less likely now that given the league whirlwind and teams already shedding salary, but it's there. So the Toronto Raptors already made a move. We know it's in their plans, it's in their wheelhouse to essentially acquire assets by eating contracts from different teams. This is something that's going on, something that's happening, and it could be a part of multiple, multi-team trades that are happening across the NBA. So the Raptors can now still do this despite acquiring Brandon Ingram. They maintained all their flexibility, they maintained all their trade stash in this Brandon Ingram trade. And this is huge because one other thing to note in this whole situation, which makes another move even more likely for the Toronto Raptors, is these trades haven't been made official. You have other deals like the Luka AD trade. I can only think of Luka out there in that deal. Official. That deal is made official. There's a couple of deals that certain teams want to get across the finish line. The De'Aaron Fox deal, because the having the player in your rotation, into your roster, is immediately more important. But a lot of these deals, including the Brandon Ingram contracts or the trade being switched over, his money being sent to the Toronto Raptors, isn't made official just yet. So that means basically, even though this reported deal is not going to fall apart, don't expect Brandon Ingram to suddenly not be a Toronto Raptor. And certainly, Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, the first-round pick, they're all controlled by New Orleans. And the decisions that are being made are controlled by these guys here right now. But this trade can be adjusted to include other types of players being rerouted different places, and that includes other guys that are coming to Toronto to have their salaries eaten up. And that's what the Toronto Raptors can still facilitate. And in reward for that being the case, the Toronto Raptors essentially get draft compensation or really young players or something, whatever the heck it is. They are given a reason to essentially eat up some of that salary cap. So that's the route that Masai Ujiri has already made a trade, going down that avenue, going down that path. To, of course, we didn't deplete our draft stock by any means. We still have all of our future first-round picks and most of our seconds, not a 2031. And our pick is going out from the Toronto Raptors this season, but we were getting Portland Trailblazers coming in. So we still have a lot of our picks, but we can acquire more and more draft capital for the future by making a move like this. So it makes a ton of sense. Now, who on earth are likely to be dealt here now at this point for the Toronto Raptors? Because, of course, the team looks a bit different than this list shows because the trade, again, isn't official, even though it's official, but it hasn't, the writing hasn't been sent to the NBA. But basically, this team's salary situation is the same, but Brandon Ingram's contract, we have to factor an extension for him here now and at this point. But looking at the rest of the roster, of course, Chris Boucher is a name that pops up giving us expiring contract status, as well as Davion Mitchell. Two of those guys are still expiring deals. Vets that teams that are over the tax would be interested in because they could still provide a ton of value to the team in the short term, and they're expiring deals, so it doesn't keep their money on the books for multiple seasons. Now, the Toronto Raptors are in a bit of a different spot than they were a couple days ago because, of course, this team is this team has to factor in a Brandon Ingram extension now at this point on top of all the money coming into Immanuel Quickley, Scottie Barnes. The team isn't expensive right now, but it will get expensive starting next season. So Masai Ujiri is probably less willing to take on a multi-year contract in one of these sort of salary dump trade scenarios. But for a team that's trying to get under the tax, the Milwaukee Bucks were one of those teams which are now at this point, so they have more flexible deals after the Kyle Kuzma trade. But one of these teams that are looking to get under the tax, the Masai Ujiri-led Toronto Raptors, Bobby Webster, GM out here making these moves, they could still make this happen. And of course, just looking at the stats, like any team would be interested in a Davion Mitchell, who has been playing really well as of late, 6 points per game, 5 assists. A lot of Raptors fans want to keep him long-term. He's only 26. A hound out there on the defensive end, just a really good guy to have within your organization. Not sure how much he's going to get paid going into next year. Then, of course, Chris Boucher, who's been a monster out there for this team. The reason we're winning, he's been, forget Brandon Ingram stopping the tank. The real thing that could put the tank to rest is Chris Boucher coming out here and winning a ton of games so we don't capture that flag. So, I don't know. It's a wild situation. Status quo as usual in terms of the goals for just this season. Brandon Ingram's dealing with a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out for a little bit of stretch of time, which made this trade even better because it doesn't affect the tank if they're in the short term. He's excited to be on the Toronto Raptors. There's so much stuff going on here now at this point. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing that's happening with this Toronto Raptors team. Anyways, you guys are the best. Stay tuned to Raptors Digest because we're going to be dropping a ton of vids. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.